Welcome to the Misophonia Podcast. You're listening to episode 19 of season 2. My name's Adil Ahmad, and I have Misophonia. We are back on schedule this week with your highly anticipated Wednesday episodes. This week I'm talking to Melody, an artist living in Israel. I haven't talked to enough people outside of North America or Europe, so this was really cool. It's a really interesting conversation because she talks about some unusual triggers and coping mechanisms due to her problems handling sound volume and vibrations more generally. It's now September and we're down to our last few episodes for season 2, and that means I'll be recording a whole new batch of episodes soon. Look for announcements on how to book on our social media, which you probably know by now, Instagram and Facebook at Misophonia Podcast, or Twitter at Misophonia Show. Of course, you can always email me at hello@misophoniapodcast.com. Another reminder, the Misophonia Association Convention is coming up, totally virtual this year, from October the 8th through the 10th. All the speakers are now up on their website and Facebook page, and I've got links in the show notes on how to access. All right, now here's my conversation with Melody. Melody, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, as tradition holds, I like to find out kind of, around where you're located.
I am currently living in Israel. I'm originally from Argentina, but I'm moving here now.
Oh, excellent. Cool. Okay, yeah, we haven't had anybody from actually, either of those countries. So you're in Israel now. Oh, what brought you there, by the way?
I was born in Buenos Aires, and my parents, after in 2002 or something, there was kind of a crisis in Argentina. So my parents were like, let's get out of here. And since we're Jewish, they were like, oh, let's try Israel. So I've been living here since I was a child. So it's mainly like my home. I probably am more of an Israeli person than I am than I feel related, I guess, to Argentina. But yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we go back? When we first scheduled, I guess I'm just pulling up. I just when I went and pulled up some of the notes you sent about kind of how far back it goes and kind of some of your triggers. Do you want to maybe talk about that, because it sounded like this kind of unusual triggers.
Yeah. I have no problem talking about it. Hopefully I won't trigger anyone.
Yeah, it's fine to mention. No one's complained yet. Kind of, but we don't have to necessarily go and start making the sounds or going too descriptive. But yeah, I mean, just talking about general is helpful.
Well, it started actually when I was, I think, around 10 years old, I want to say. I started having this weird anxiety about music, and mainly speakers. If any sound, even if it was just the radio or whatever, people talking through speakers, stereo, that kind of stuff, I would probably get really anxious. And yeah, I've never met anyone that had the same problem as me. Every time that I bring this up, people look at me funny, or that's kind of I've never heard of that. And actually, funny thing is that I guess the universe wanted to laugh a little bit, because my dad is a radio announcer. And he loves loud music to blast it on, and then I have my brother, who is a drummer and a DJ. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, so was your dad a radio announcer before this time, before you were 10? When you start to get triggers, was he already was this his career already, or was that?
Yeah, it was his career way before I was born.
Okay, gotcha. And you said all amplified sounds, right? Not just music, but voice as well. So anything that comes through speakers, that's gotcha.
Exactly. I mean, it really started from that. And then it started like it's weird. I have no explanation for it. I've looked for it on the internet so much, but I have near to no answer. And I've seen therapists in throughout my life, but I've never really touched upon those things. But it started kind of like developing from like it was just loud music from speakers only, and then loud music from like the speakers on the TV, and then it started like home appliances such as like the washing machine or the microwave or
Okay,
stuff
so
like
it has
that.
moved to other
Yeah,
kinds of sounds.
yeah.
Okay, and was it just loud music, or like if something was kind of gently playing through speakers, like in a department store or something, does that bother you as well?
Yes, I always used to like warn people if I went to like my friend's house or if I actually when I started living with roommates, I was like, please let's not bring any speakers to the house, or if you want, then I'll just get out of the house real quick so you can play that. But it was because I always warned them that it was like my kind of loud is their kind of low music. So I couldn't hear
Oh,
even like the bass. I thought at first I had a problem with just the
yeah,
sorry, just the bass of the music, but then even that, like even the rest of the things were like triggering.
all frequencies.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What about um earbuds, headphones?
Oh, yeah, that one too. I have less trouble with when I have headphones on, but I always used to look up, like, you know, how people look up headphones to buy like that are really, really good and in
Yeah.
quality and like, bass and all that stuff. I looked for the other type, the kind of like low quality thing that I could just listen to and it would be kind of manageable for me.
Oh, so
But
low quality in terms
yeah.
of maybe it's actually good headphones will be across a wide frequency spectrum.
Mhm.
So you're looking for crappy ones that might just be like
Exactly.
amplifying basically
It's
voice maybe or actually I guess it's
yeah.
hard because if everything's so what is there are any parts of the frequency spectrum okay relatively okay for you or better than others?
I guess so.
Mm.
Now I am like a lot of the time, even if I was listening to music in through my headphones or earphones, I would usually try to like maintain it at a certain level like of volume.
Uh,
And then there were times, however, there are still times, sadly, that I listen to the music and then suddenly like a really uh, upbeat song, kind of like I don't know, like rock music or
yeah.
whatever, or electronic music. I love electric swing, so that sometimes has like those bass kind of moments. And um, if I really think about it, if I'm thinking like, oh, I'm listening to this kind of music right now, my head will start to like gradually get anxious as long as I keep thinking about it, and so I'm trying to like not. But then again, if, for example, I live now with two roommates who love speakers, love loud music. So whenever they are with that music, I usually like just try to put my headphones in and close any door that I can to not hear the sound. So funny enough, like listening to music through my headphones helps me like um, to not get anxious about the music that's playing in the background,
And
if
then
it
what
makes
you're
sense.
listening to in your headphones is like electronic swing.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
are your favorite? What would you recommend if somebody's looking for terrible headphones? What are the worst headphones that you love?
There were some that were like the phone headphones, the earphones.
Right, right.
Yeah, or any type of like old headphones that probably are not in the market anymore.
Yeah, maybe
Those
come
kinds
with
of
some
things.
really bad, like really cheap kids' toys or something.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I actually had like headphones from Sony that were like plastic ones,
Hmm.
the really cheap ones. Those were really, really good for me.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty wow a rare form of misophonia, but I'm sure somebody's listening and they're like, "Oh my God, this is the information I cannot get anywhere else." So
I
I
hope
just
so.
wanted to put that out there. Do you know, is it, so, a lot of people sometimes, especially related to the radio, they don't like
Hmm.
if sound is compressed too, like volume is compressed too much, like it's everything's squashed.
Hmm.
Um, or that kind of like, because then you can hear everybody's like mouth sounds as loud as kind of
Hmm.
um, they're yelling. I wonder if that, if you recognize if that has anything to do with it, or it's just something unknown that you haven't figured out.
Um, I I think it might. I
Mm.
think it might be related. I used to have like I listened to the other podcasts, the other episodes, and I remember there were people mainly talking about how they were triggered by people eating around them.
Yeah.
And then I do remember I did have those times where, for example, my family, like we would all sit and they would eat, and if someone was, chewing loudly, I would get like really, really angry. But it's not in the same, like it's not the same as someone suddenly like putting the speakers on, and me having like the sudden reaction of like I want to get out of here right
Okay,
now.
so your fight or flight is specifically it's specifically
Hmm.
for the speaker sounds, but your
Yeah.
reaction to you know traditional traditionally funny sounds is you can still have something, but it's not fight or flight. It's
Exactly.
interesting. It's more like
Irritation mostly.
it's irritation, like the normal people
Yeah.
sometimes have. Interesting. Okay. And so, and you mentioned that you've seen therapists all your life. I'm
Yeah.
curious, and I'm assuming this are in multiple countries too, like around the world,
Hmm.
places you've lived.
Yeah.
Um, have they heard about misophonia? I get kind of mixed feedback on whether some have heard, some have not, some are helpful,
Mm,
some are not.
and I never really brought up the
Oh,
name
right. You haven't brought
misophonia
it up. Okay.
because, yeah, because when I was younger, I started seeing therapists for like types of like anxiety and depression, stuff like that, around when I was 16 years old, and it's been 10 years. So I've started seeing them, and I've always used to tell my parents, like, we used to fight with my family a lot about the speakers thing, the music, because a lot of the time I would ask my parents to like just turn it off or turn it down, and my mom would immediately say like I should be the one telling you that you should be the one blasting the music like you're a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me, but that's kind of like the thing. And then my brother would like, you know, have to like um, practice his drummer skills, and because he was attending like a school for that. And I remember that fortunately in Israel you have some rooms that are like kind of like soundproof, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like one room that sadly we have to have to protect ourselves. But so he would sleep there, and his drums would be there, and so that's like you just close the door and you can barely hear anything. But I remember like we would fight all the time. And so when I went to see the therapist, I told him like I think I have a phobia. I thought it was kind
Mm.
of like a phobia. I didn't know what it was. It was like I get really anxious when there's loud sounds. And for someone, loud sounds would be something like really, really loud. As for me, it's just like normal type of volumes. And he just looked at me like, "Oh, that's weird." Like he didn't, obviously he didn't say that's weird, but that was kind of like unusual. He never heard about that. And then he told me like, well, let's try to talk about it. But then we never really did. And then there were other therapists that have heard about the same kind of like um, situation, I guess, but they never really called it misophonia. They were never like, oh yeah, this is that. They were just thought like, oh, this is a weird phobia that you might have.
Interesting.
Uh,
So your brother is drumming, and even your dad's. Well, okay. Let's focus. Your brother drumming, like, it's not if it's not through his speakers, is it still bothering you?
yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to. This is me kind of like going on a side tangent, but
Yeah. Please go for it.
when I was a kid, I was very much like an artistic type of kid. I still do like. art, but in a different way than I used to do back then. I used to like sing and dance and go to like these types of courses, I guess, that would be just drama club and stuff like that. And it was when I was like 6 years old. But then as I grew up, I started to like get this fear, so I stopped. And I wanted to learn how to play like the ukulele and kalimba and stuff like the violin or piano or stuff like that. And whenever I went to like a music store, to try and like play with that, I would get so anxious. I would have to get out. I was like, okay, this is enough. I'm going. And so my brother being a drummer was really bad for me because he loved it. It's like his kind of like outlet, he loves that so much. And so he would do that really, really often. And the thing is, you can't hear the whole thing, but you can feel the vibrations of the drumming when he is, because you're like really next to him, in a room next to him. And so that would be like, oh no, I know that there's a loud sound coming from that. I can feel the vibration from it. Like, let me just book it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it is more. And here's my completely unqualified expert opinion, but wondering if it is more vibrations, because you're more likely to feel vibrations if it's
I have no
through a
clue.
speaker versus like your
Yeah.
dad. Does your dad talking also bother you? Just
Um,
when he's in front of you, as opposed to coming through a speaker.
no, no, not at all.
Yeah,
It doesn't bother me.
because if he's talking, yeah, because if he's talking to you, I mean, obviously the air is moving, but it's not like it's going to
Yeah,
speakers which are connected to the floor or wall or whatever, and then you can maybe feel some
it could be.
vibration.
I never thought about it.
I think that's absolutely it, and you should get. But, yeah, no, I'm just brainstorming here. Yeah, that's quite interesting, and yeah, obviously if your brother's playing drums, you're feeling it everywhere too, because the drums are kind of speakers. They're
Yeah.
so interesting. Okay, and then yeah, so when you went to the music store, it's like you're walking in and everyone's all these terrible violin students are playing violin, and so is hearing other people is
Yeah.
what was driving you crazy, right? So when
Yeah.
you play instruments yourself, if you do, does that bother you?
Yes,
Ah,
I have a kalimba that I was gifted not long ago, and it was like my dream. I love the music that it makes, so I was like, I want one. And then my someone gifted it to me, and then I was like, okay, let me just play it. And I couldn't. I just couldn't. The moment that I tried, I was like, oh, I didn't know it was gonna be this loud. So no, thank you.
wow. And yeah, I'm curious, yeah, about your hearing sensitivity in general. Like, when you walk into rooms or go out, do you hear um, things that are far away, very close, as if they're close to you, or is your
Yeah.
hearing otherwise pretty relatively normal?
No, I think my hearing is probably normal, but my ears do pick up music sounds very quickly. It's like my brain is constantly like looking for
Yeah,
warnings, like, oh no.
right. So okay, so then so this all started, it sounds like around the age of 10 or so, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so traditional things like eating around the table weren't bothering you like they do for
Mm.
most people. Did anything happen at school? Like there's sometimes there's music class at school and whatnot, or
Hmm.
maybe kids are playing music. Did it ever affect you as you were a student growing
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, I remember that my parents, like, it was sort of like I guess something that people did a lot in Argentina. And so even when we moved to Israel, I remember we still did those things where we would have, like, if it was my birthday or my brother's birthday, my parents would like rent a place to have a party. And then obviously loud music and like flashing lights and stuff like that would be there. And so I remember that for that, when I remember that vividly. I think it was my 11th birthday, and I looked at my dad, and he was dancing with me. And then I thought, this music is too loud. I'm scared that it would maybe like hurt me or him or whatever. And so I was just like, let's get out of here. But I
Mm.
didn't go. And the thing is that I looked it up because I think it was um, like this year or so that I was like, okay, you know what, let's look it up. Let's just try and see where this is coming from, if maybe somebody else found something by now, because I've always searched for it but never really had any information. And then it turns out there's like a site that talks about misophonia and misokinesia, I think it's
Yeah.
called. And I was like, what the heck? I have the same thing. Like, it wasn't, my symptoms were very different from the sites over there, like from
Right.
the ones that were listed. So I was like, maybe this is not what I have. I don't know. But at the same time, for example, seeing things such as like fairy lights, like blinking, or disco lights, or things that are like long type of fabric, like curtains or dresses or stuff like that, really makes me kind of like the same type of anxious as the speakers thing. And so it's the same reaction. And my friends were always like, you're so weird, why are you so afraid of this? And I'm like, I don't know.
So you just found out about misophonia like literally this year, 2020.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that's pretty new. Yeah, obviously there's all kinds of sensory processing, and this thing is got a lot of studying ahead of it. So
Hmm.
um, it's we don't
I
know all
hope
the
they
triggers yet.
find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is certainly kind of an interesting case as well.
Yeah.
Um, and
I mean, I
so
would volunteer. So if
yeah,
anyone wanted to experiment on me, let it, like, I'd be happy to, because I want to know. I want answers as well.
okay. If anyone's listening, Melody's offered any kinds of experiments
Happy to.
on her brain. There is one by the Baylor one, but
Yeah.
it's I think it's adolescents, but
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of research money being a lot of funding happening right now, so I'm sure there'll be opportunities.
That's great.
So over the next little while, and so you mentioned okay, so you mentioned your birthdays were like terrible experiences for you. Were there was there so and then you also mentioned your friends kind of like wondering what's wrong with you. Did it
Hmm.
affect like the types of people you hung out with?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about how it affected your kind of social life.
So when I started like socializing as a teen, I was about 12 years old. I remember going to friends' houses. We would all have to like meet up together, and we would listen to music and coming from like the TV, the speakers on the TV. And I remember that one time I went to a party. More like a social gathering type of thing, and my friends were like blasting music on the TV, and I was like, can you not, please, can you lower the music, or just don't play it? And they were like, it's okay, you're gonna be fine, you just need to ignore it. And I'm like, I can't, that's the thing,
Yeah,
otherwise I would have.
right.
But I would at some point I just stopped really hanging out with many people outside of school. And my uh, relationship with my family was also very like rocky because of that. It wasn't like anything like we would, have really ugly fights every day, but it was every single day you would have to explain yourself again. You would have to ask for, like, say like, oh, I'm so sorry, but can you please turn the
Yeah,
volume down? And like my dad once, I remember, like, I was there was a time where I was especially like triggered by like any type of sound, even if it was kind of like low. If it came from speakers, I would be triggered. And I went to ask him, like, can you please lower the volume, because I am like reaching my limit here. I want to go out. And he was like, stop, like, being a nuisance, pretty much.
mm,
And that's like, from then on, I was like, all right, every time that I hear something like that, I'm going out of the house, or I'm
yeah,
I'm gonna be in my room, do anything I can to like not hear it,
Yeah,
basically.
sometimes it's not worth it, and you just have
Yeah.
to surrender. And well, I don't know
Hmm.
if that's the right word, but yeah, I mean, just leave. It's
Yeah.
not worth the added stress. And speaking of stress, does stress are things like stress kind of exacerbating to this trigger of yours?
Hmm. Yeah. They. I'm generally I'm not an anxious person, but I did suffer from anxiety. And so this was like some more like added anxiety to that, and it would just pretty much um, boost my anxiety a lot by a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, music is TV or is such a big part of growing up
Hmm.
that it could obviously well, and family life. I'm wondering, like, movies. Did you ever? Well, how was the movie experience? Going to theaters or even watching videos at home?
Yeah,
Did you do any of that?
actually, videos at home are fine. I always use headphones. I don't own any type of speakers. But going to the movies, it would, I say that, I would say that it's pretty okay for me. I can maintain like a calm, like co- be calm and collected, I guess, when I
Yeah.
go to the movies because I do animation, so this is what I'm studying. This is what I love. So going to the movies is like my favorite place to go to, funny enough. So then I sometimes like do get triggered though when when I'm actually thinking, oh, there was a bass going right now or and stuff like that. And so I would usually try to like think where would I not where in this room would I be safest,
Mm.
basically. Is to not hear too much of that or feel that the vibrations as well. So yeah, but mostly that's the only place I would say that I'm okay with the speakers. Otherwise, it's like if especially if there's like an echo going on. That's why I think being in the house is like, because the music echoes sometimes. That I think was a very big problem for me. But going to the movies was fine. Going to concerts, however, was a no-go for me. I couldn't.
Okay. Any kind of music, going to a
Yeah.
concert, terrible.
Mhm.
Well,
Or to parties, like clubs, stuff like that. No.
yeah, interesting. And when you mention echo, are you talking about more like reverberation? Just that
Mhm.
kind of like kind of that open sound, or literally
Yeah.
an echo.
Both. An open sound kind of place,
Hmm.
but yeah, also like a literal echo, especially like because sometimes, you go to live in a house and the house doesn't really have like soundproof walls or whatever.
Yeah.
So that can be really, really bad. That's why when we moved to this place with my two roommates, I heard the echo in the house when we were talking. And obviously, like we had to still furnish a little bit of the house, but I was like, this is gonna be bad.
Oh yeah. So in a new house, you'd want to put a bunch of fabric
Yeah.
to kind of deaden the sound.
Hmm.
When I mentioned reverb, if nobody's familiar, it's like that sound of when you go into a church. I'm curious.
Exactly.
Did you go? Do if you? I don't know how big synagogues are related in relation to churches, but did you ever go to like a s- s-
Mm.
uh, synagogue? And is that kind of a bad place or a good place? Because there's a lot of
Yeah.
reverb there in houses of worship.
I did go to synagogues, especially with my family. I don't go now. I'm not a super religious person, but if I do go, it's like to a synagogue or to a church.
Probably for
It's
bat mitzvahs, I'm sure at some point maybe you go, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But like I remember if, for example, I go to visit a country, I usually like going to churches to see how
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
and to synagogues
architecture.
and stuff like that. So yes, the sound sometimes if there's like music playing, like I don't know the name of the instrument, but it's like a really big piano. I'm sorry, can't think of
Oh
the
yeah,
name.
like a pipe organ.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if I hear that and I hear like throughout the entire church, I'm like, oh, well, it was nice, but I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah. It also can sound kind of creepy, but in general, interesting. Okay. So yeah, so so in terms of coping mechanisms, obviously leaving the situation, and
Hmm.
then um, the worst headphones
Mm.
you can find can kind of help. Are
Yeah.
there any other things that you've learned work for you? Well, actually, I was had a thought earlier, but how about earplugs? Just kind of like just kind of
Yes.
deadening, so that you're not even injecting more sound into your ears. You're just kind of
Mm.
attenuating. Does that help, or have you
Yes,
tried that?
yes, it does. My roommate actually suggested that to me one time, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try it," and it did work. But also like headphones, especially like even if I'm not listening to any music, I'll
Yeah.
try taking like my roommate's headphones that are like soundproof, and try to like just put them on and without any music, without anything, but like just have them on to kind of like uh make the sound a little bit more like go away, I guess. But also, I find that um, listening to music through my own headphones and also humming to myself or like trying to like talk to like not talk to myself, that sounds weird, but humming to myself or trying to like think of anything else like grounding techniques, I guess. That also works for me, but it doesn't work like by itself. I also have to have something on my ears because otherwise no.
Okay, so to kind of like summarize that, so sometimes you're saying sometimes if you hear music,
Hmm.
if you hear stuff outside your headphones, then it helps to put on headphones without music, and then also hum along.
Yeah.
So kind of like the mimicry that people do when they are triggered by
Mm,
eating sounds. Are you
yes.
humming along to the same music, or are you humming something completely different than what's triggering
Anything.
you?
It could
Anything.
be anything. Yeah, it could be the same sound that I'm hearing, but also sometimes it's just like any type of thing that comes to my head, like first thing that comes to my head and I'm humming it. Um, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And so, yeah, so we mentioned also, yeah, non-sound triggers, like, and you mentioned music kinesia. So I'm curious how visual triggers affect you. Do you get triggered much by visual
Yeah.
stuff, like
Yes.
maybe watching your brother play drums and
Yeah.
okay,
Uh, Um, that like seeing someone play any type of instrument, like my brother doing that, or
the music
um,
store
yeah, the
or
music store,
or going to a
and
concert, I'm sure. I mean, was that kind of
yeah.
one of the big reasons? Well, I guess you're also
Yeah,
hearing loud
that
stuff.
was definitely, especially the hearing, but that was also a very big thing.
Hmm.
Also, this is like, I think also since I was a kid, so like it's 10 is like the youngest that I can think of that this started. But I remember like I tried going to concerts in the past when I was a kid, and there's always this kinds of like lights going on and off, like
Yeah.
flashing lights, or like the those lights that really have like a really big reach, and so they move along and you can see them like
Yeah, the
um,
spotlights. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. So those are a big trigger for me as well. Like any
Even
type of
now.
like,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
even
So
now.
any kind of spotlight, even if there's
Yeah.
no, oh, interesting. Okay.
If I see like, for example, disco lights or flashing lights, spotlights, even a flashlight, and also like my roommate, when it's Christmas, he does kind of celebrate it, and so he put like last December, I remember he put all of the flashing lights that he had, like fairy lights
Oh,
type of thing,
yeah.
and they were like changing color and like changing like the rhythm in which they were like flashing. And I remember I could not step into the living room. I just couldn't go. I stayed in my room the entire time because I couldn't go to like, because I had to go to the kitchen, and to go to the kitchen you have to pass through the living room, and so I just couldn't go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But a stationary light, when you turn on a light in your at your desk, is fine. It's
Yeah, that's fine. That's weird.
I'm wondering if it is the changing nature of the light, whether it's moving or turning
That
on and
too.
off. Okay.
Yeah, I have like RGB lights in my computer. And sometimes they do have like that feature that they change kind of like the color and stuff like that. And so I have it off right now because when it's night and you can see them very well, they start like changing and moving along, and it's like, oh no.
Okay, yeah,
um
that's a new feature in a lot of computers where it'll
yeah,
take away the there'll be like a blue filter at night,
exactly.
and so that bothers you.
Yeah, but
That changing, yeah.
but like as well as lights, I would say fabric, like long pieces of fabric when they move through the wind type of thing.
Mm.
That I do not own any dresses, any long dresses. I get really, really triggered from even wearing and seeing myself and feeling the fabric go along. And I don't have curtains in my house at all. Um, and that's kind of that made me wonder a few months back. I was like, what happens if I ever want to get married? For example, like have a big party with all my friends and family and stuff like that. And I have to have, like, obviously for the guests, you want to have stuff like, music and lights and all the things that trigger me. And I would have to like wear a dress and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. I
Yeah,
probably
just go
shouldn't get
low.
married.
Yeah, just it's a lot cheaper if you just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And anyways,
It's
that's many benefits to that. But yeah, interesting. Okay, so yeah, fabrics, just that visual nature of the
mhm.
movement and the ripples and whatnot. Interesting. Any other kind of we've heard some we have heard some unusual stuff once in a while on the podcast in terms of like visual triggers, like clasp clasping hands together and rubbing. It does
Mm.
oh yeah, does like a does the sense of touch, like somebody maybe on a plane in the seat behind you, maybe kicking the seat a little bit or whatever. Would that kind of thing bother you? That kind of like that kind of
um
touching nature.
It does, but it doesn't really like bother me as much as others probably. So I wouldn't say it's like something that has to do with misokinesia. It's probably just, or like misophonia. It's just something that I find sometimes a little bit bothersome, but I can
Okay.
get over it pretty quickly. I don't really it's not like a real trigger for me. Otherwise, things like what I said are the bigger things that I just, when I see it, I have to turn away and I feel like super anxious.
Gotcha. Okay. And yeah, so how do you so what do you I guess what do you how do you tell people? Well, I guess you just recently found out what it was. Are you now did you go out and start telling people, hey, you know that thing that you thought I was
Mm.
crazy. We all thought I was crazy. This is what it is. Um, or
Um,
do you have you are you still kind of processing
no,
what?
I did tell throughout my life, my family knew all the time because I couldn't go a minute without like trying to make them stop the music and stuff like that. Um, so they knew, but they were always kind of like either brushing it off, saying like it's just her being annoying or whatever. Like I don't know if annoying, but
Yeah.
she's like she'll get over it pretty quickly, or things like uh, they always thought it was something weird, but they were always like, you should get over it. We shouldn't be the ones to you know to accommodate you basically. Um, and so they knew. um and then I think like said something to my dad and he was like, oh cool, and then we moved on to the next thing.
Hmm.
But with my friends, I did tell them like, hey, I just found out this thing that really fits my, like, what my problems that I've had, because they also know, like, whenever I go to their house and we want to watch a movie or something, I'm like, give me the remote. I want to have like at least want to know that I can control the music, if or like the
Mm.
sound mostly, like if I want to, or things like can we not play that right now or stuff like that. That my friends are always really, really supportive of me and always try to like be considerate. So that's something that I'm super grateful for. Or also my roommates, all the roommates that I've had so far were really, really nice about that. But they always are like, that's kind of weird. And so the other time when I told them like, oh, this is called misokinesia and misophonia,
Mm.
and so this is this is probably the problem that's been there all along. And they were like, oh, I can't believe there's a name for it. I never knew that was an actual thing that people went through. I just thought it was you.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, right. Many of us go through that
Yeah.
discovery. Um, so you mentioned having control is important to you in terms of like the
Hmm.
remote control when
Yeah.
you're. And so does that help just knowing that you have control over the volume?
It does. It doesn't make it go away,
Hmm.
but it does help a little bit to kind of manage it. And if I and I also like tell my friends or whoever's like watching this with me, I would tell them like if I can hold the remote, just to know that I can lower and like make the volume like go up and down as I please. And so that will probably happen during the movie that maybe you won't be able to hear something. So
Right.
let's watch something with subtitles so that you know what's going on.
I was gonna ask, like, do you sometimes just turn all the sound off and look at the closed
Yeah.
captions?
Yeah, it's usually one of two things with when I'm also especially when I'm alone. I do try to like just turn the volume all the way down, mute it, and just watch something with the captions on. That really helps.
Mm.
But as well, I have I remembered when I was a kid, when I was like 14 or 12 years old, I used to try and trigger myself to get over it. I thought if I listen to this more like for a half an hour, maybe it'll go away.
Like a little
So
exposure therapy experiment.
exactly. So I would blast music, all the music that I liked that had like like a really big like bass moment, or that had just any type of loud music coming from the speakers of my dad, his desktop, I guess. I would put it on, and when I was alone in the house, so people wouldn't like think that I'm over it, and then like we shouldn't have this conversation again. So I was alone and I was blasting that, and I remember I couldn't hold for more than 5 minutes, maybe. It was
Mm.
like this is too hard. I thought it wouldn't be like this hard, but it's really really tough for me to like, even if I can control it, I would go through it, and then the whole time I would be anxious, like really, really anxious, and I would want to turn down the volume. So I could never really do that. And I did think about going to therapy, to like exposure therapy, but just the thought of like having to be exposed to that for like an hour or less, or like half an hour or whatever, that was really terrifying for me. So
Yeah, definitely mixed reviews about exposure therapy in general, and yeah, most people don't even want to try.
yeah.
Um, and so, what about at work? It's one thing to have
Mm.
control at home. Do you get triggered at? Well, first of all, are you at school working or?
I am working at the moment. I am an illustrator, and I also am self-teaching. Like I'm teaching myself animation at the moment.
Mm, mhm.
But I did go to university for digital animation, and also I'm working at the moment. Currently, because of the situation of the
Yeah,
world, I'm at home,
yeah.
but I do work at the airport. So that's a place where they do put music on and stuff like that, but it's usually really, really like low volume that you can barely hear it with all the like white noise that goes around.
Yeah, there's
So
white noise, but I guess there's also a lot of echo. So, but you find
yeah.
you find it's generally okay to be there.
Yeah, because the part that I'm in is pretty closed off.
Hmm.
So going to like from the start, like from the entrance of the airport to the place that I'm working, is like kind of sometimes if it's like really, if the echo is too big, I probably would get triggered. But I usually just walk really fast so
Yeah.
I can just get there.
Okay. Yeah. Just do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Um, what about yeah? Maybe well, we're getting actually yeah. This is kind of flown by. We're almost about an hour in or so. I don't know how
Ooh.
long, but but I do want to cover. I just want to hit upon your illustrations. Maybe like do you
Mm.
have you um have you ever kind of created art that's kind of maybe been inspired by what you're feeling?
Yes, definitely. I had many illustrations, especially as when I was in high school. I would draw what I was feeling while being triggered. So anytime, like I would even sometimes try to trigger myself in order to like create something that I would like that would be representing misophonia. So I do have those.
Do you have
But
them anywhere, like online? I would love to maybe. I don't know
um,
if you're willing to share. It'd be. I'm sure people would be
yeah,
interested.
sure. Sure, thank you. I am on Instagram as Melo de Marshmallow.
Nice.
So
Okay, I'll put that link in
I
the
could,
show notes too.
yeah,
But
I
yeah.
could show you the link.
Mhm.
And I do also like sometimes stream what I'm doing, what I on Twitch, for example.
Oh, you have a Twitch channel? Oh, for this. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Well, I'll definitely get that
So
link for that. Yeah.
yeah, and they're actually I on the streams I do put music, but it's usually for me, like I make it so that the people in the stream can hear it, but I usually put it really low for me so I can be calm whenever
Oh,
something's
okay.
happening. It
Okay.
happened to me that at one time in the stream I was like, oh, I'm getting triggered, so I'm gonna turn it down.
Have you ever done it to kind of purposely trigger yourself in doing a stream? I know you've done it
Mm.
growing up, but there might be an interesting stream channel to watch you just get increasingly aggro.
Probably. I might try one time.
I'm not saying do it, but I don't want to. I never want to. I never want to. Make people triggered. But
No, of course.
that'd be kind of funny. Oh yeah, that's super cool. It'd be interesting to watch you. So
Thank you.
are you drawing? Well, I guess we'll see it. But are you drawing on paper or is this a digital animation that you're
Both.
watching?
I do digital drawings and animation with my tablet, and also I sometimes do traditional drawings.
Very good. And so, what do you want to do later with this? You said you like I think you said you maybe like animated. You like movies with animation. Do you want to get
Yeah.
into gaming maybe or
Mm.
feature film?
I'm a huge fan of like animation is my passion.
Mm.
So I do want to be a part of any studio doing like stuff like movies and like cartoons like on TV. That's like my main priority, I guess. But
Hmm.
also like working as like a character designer for a video game would be extremely exciting for me because I also love video games a lot.
Interesting. Yeah. So are you familiar with Unity and all the
Yes.
usual? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine virtual reality, artificial reality. There's a lot of stuff emerging in
Hmm.
those fields that might be interesting to you too. And then you can create your own sonically pleasant environment.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Melody. Well, actually, yeah, I should say, as someone who's recently found out about Miso, is there anything you'd like to tell people who might, well, also somebody who's got a relatively, unusual trigger pattern? Anything you want to tell folks who might be kind of in your situation? Um,
Yes, I guess I would say to anyone who's listening to this and going like, oh, maybe I have misophonia, but it's the triggers for me are very different from the rest. I would say that your feelings and your triggers are not any less valid for not being like popular, I guess. But also don't be afraid to try and go to therapy or try to talk to your friends and family that you trust and try to like have a conversation in which you try and explain yourself to them, because I think a lot of my problems with my family, when I was living with them, growing up with them, our fights would center a lot around misophonia for me. And I never took the time as a kid to explain to sit them, like to sit with them and explain to them like this is how I feel, and I know it's weird, I don't understand it myself, but I'm trying to let you know, because a lot of the time my parents and my brother and my family would be kind of like ignorant to what was going on. I think if we don't know, then the people who don't go through it know even less. So it's something that it's not always done out of like malice, but it's also they just don't understand. So never be afraid to vocalize what you're going through, because it can help a lot, either yourself or anybody that might listen to you. So good luck.
yeah, absolutely critical, important message. I agree 110, 100, 1010%. Yeah, never be afraid to talk about express what you need. Don't discount your feelings. This is a hugely underexplored area, and so your experiences are valuable. And amazing. So thanks again, Melody, for coming on. It's been fascinating listening to your experience. And
Thank you.
And best of luck to you. I know you just recently found out what Misophonia is, but there's a community online through this and through many other ways. So I hope hope you connect with other folks and
Sure.
that things work out for you. And I look forward to seeing your Twitch channel.
Thank you so much, and thank you for visiting as well in the future. But thank you so much for giving me the platform to talk about it. I think I was scared actually to come on and like say something and people would be like, oh, that's not misophonia because your symptoms are not popular. So I guess thank you for giving me the platform to talk about it, to giving me the time as well. I really appreciate it. So I'm hoping that the podcast goes on and that it gets bigger so many people can hear about it and find out that they're probably not alone. So yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Melody. Remember, new interview slots will be opening up very soon, so please look out for that. If you're enjoying the shows, please consider hitting the 5 stars on Apple iTunes. Music, as always, is by Moby. And wishing you peace and quiet.